Hi everyone, welcome to another Beta Change Minisode. My name is Ashley. I'm one of the co-founders and directors of Beta Change. Today we are celebrating International Women's Day on the 8th of March, and we are super lucky to be joined by a superstar living near me in nearby New Zealand. Her name is Carrie, and in the I guess the notion of um, celebrating and empowering women all across the globe, we have got Carrie today who's going to be talking about her diabetes advocacy efforts and also a little bit about her life with diabetes and what's happening in New Zealand. So welcome, Carrie. Could you tell us a little bit more about yourself, please?
Hi. Okay, well, firstly, not really a superstar, but thank you.
Totally superstar,
Um,
please.
I've had diabetes for 12 years, so I got it when I was 19, which I guess is a little bit older than most people. Um, I live in New Zealand, and I guess I got my platform in the same way as you-ish with the International Diabetes Federation. Here I am doing my projects, doing my advocacy. Yeah.
Awesome. And I think it was super exciting to meet people from New Zealand because people often think New Zealand doesn't even actually exist.
Okay. Flat earthers think New Zealand is not real, but also Australia. So, but we
True.
all get missed off the map. It's so unfair. We are here.
We're just a figment of people's imaginations and we're paid actors. That's
Yeah.
that's legit. All right. So I'm super excited to jump into some of the questions. And we've been talking a little bit before as well. So we might pull a little bit about that. So you are an author. Hence we kind of called this like authoring in Kiwi land. Give us an update on your latest book because we know you've written a book previously and we'll talk a bit about where the money has gone from that in terms of the donations and stuff, but we know your second book's currently underway. How's it all going? Like, what has been some of the challenges? What are some successes? Talk to us about it.
Okay, so I wrote this new book quite a few years ago, but obviously writing books is kind of a side thing. It doesn't, unless you're a really famous author, you can't make it your formal job. But it's currently being illustrated. So this amazing guy at Crank Illustrations called Tim Engel, he is doing them for free because the money is going to charity, which is incredible. Um, I guess one of the main challenges with that is that we live in different cities, so communication between him drawing a picture, me having to give feedback, writing the next page, it's been quite tough, but we're hoping to have it finished in September. Fingers
Exciting.
crossed. It
Fingers
will
crossed.
finally be done. Yeah.
And you mentioned that, authoring or like, being an author is rarely a full-time gig unless you're super good. Is that something you're aspiring towards? Like being a full-time author?
Would be amazing. I am so surprised. After publishing the last book, I was surprised that there was such a big audience for our, like, it's kind of niche to have children's medical books, but then to have niche diabetes children's books is crazy. So that was quite a surprise.
Well, that's
Yeah,
exciting. I mean, that's a lot of potential. I know that on a lot of diabetes camps, that's where those books come in really handy because particularly with kids, like it's nice to see a book that they can relate to and that they can bring back to school and do in their, show and tell and their reading.
yeah.
So definitely a niche. Can you tell us a little bit of a sneak peek around what the second book is about? Like who is it targeting or such?
um, So it's kind of in the same age group as the last one. So I'd say probably maybe 5 to 9-ish.
Yep.
Um, so this one is more about having diabetes and
Mhm.
dealing with it.
Yep.
Um, so the main character is a superhero, uh,
Cool.
and it's a girl. So International Women's Day, superhero girl power. Um, and it's about how she gets diabetes, but it's not in the conventional way. It's that she's kind of tied to this little cute monster, and
Yep.
um, that tie can't be broken, so there's
Yeah.
no cure for diabetes, and it's about her dealing with being dragged all over the place by this little monster and being exhausted and having hypos. Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait for it to come out. So
I can't. I've been waiting for so long.
tell us a bit about the first book. Like, take us back to it. I know you wrote us a little postcard about it that we'll share in the comments later.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about the first book, like also what it was about, but also where the donations went to, because I know they went to a good cause.
Yeah, so the last one was more about having a children's book where the main character kind of happened to be diabetic, and there was it was this little girl that was a diver, and she went to this party under the sea, really cute, and she met all these new friends, and she had a hypo when she was doing karaoke on the stage, and she didn't want to get down because she was nervous about people seeing that there was something wrong with her. Yeah, and it was just about her new friends wanting to know all about diabetes and it not actually being bullied for it or that it was that big of a deal.
Yeah, that's awesome.
A bit different to this one, but
that's cool. And you've made that main character like, she's a diver. Is that no, this only came up because I was thinking, one of our teammates, Katie, recently had a bit of a holiday here in Australia and she went diving, and to actually go diving, she had to jump through a lot of hoops to be able to do that legally.
yeah.
Is that the same in New Zealand? Do you know? Or
yeah, I actually, you know how we're always told there's certain things that we can't do because we're diving? Well, I found out, I know a lot of people said that you can't go diving, like you could go snorkeling, but not diving. But then I met a girl that actually goes diving and she's type 1. So
you can do it.
Can do it.
And I know around the world, like lots of people with diabetes go diving all the time. It's about, getting those medical checks in place, but also managing and communicating things as well with the team. So it is possible. I just thought that just came up on the side. But tell us about where the funds for those books went, because they were all donated, right?
Yeah. So everyone that bought a book, 100% of the profits went to an organization called NG-Doc, which is in Nigeria, and the money went to help fund medical supplies like test strips for young people with diabetes. Because I kind of heard that like families there sometimes have to choose between paying for the food for their whole family or buying test strips for one of their children. And yeah, so kind of wanted to help.
That's amazing.
Help the charity.
That's amazing. And what about the second book? So will there still be donations being, will the profits still being donated to a certain charity or?
So this time the donations will be going to an organisation called DIDA. Probably no, because it's Diabetes Eating Disorders for Australia and New Zealand. So it'll be going towards like making resources and bringing awareness to eating disorders like diabulimia, because in the diabetes community we all know about the eating disorders, but there really aren't that many resources, and it's kind of only recently being picked up in the medical circles and being taken seriously. So yeah, that's where the money will be going this time.
Amazing. All right, well, you let us know when that book drops, and then we will share and tell people to buy a book. It's all going to a good cause, so we're happy to share it. So
awesome. Feels so long since the last one. Oh my gosh.
That's what I guess, it's about resilience, and you can do it, and you're almost there, so don't despair. And that rhymed. But we're really excited. I think it's, the impact of it all will be worthwhile the wait.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And we talked a little bit before in the background around diabetes technology in New Zealand, and also like access to different things there? Because we hear a lot in Australia, we put New Zealand on a pedestal because we love Kiwis, we love Jacinda Ardern, we love everything about you guys. But then when I heard about like your access to diabetes technology, I was genuinely like quite taken aback as to the options that you guys have. Can you give us an update or just tell us more about the situation that's currently happening in New Zealand and what's being done with it?
Yeah, so I mean, you're right. People think New Zealand is like developed country. We must be on par with all the technology. But gosh, we still have one glucose meter. Things have kind of gone backwards. So we used to have supply agreements with different companies like Animas for the glucose meters. But then our government went sole supply with just one glucose meter. So we've just got one. And I know that was about 6 years ago and we're still stuck there.
6 years ago.
Yeah, I think it was 6. Yeah, a long time ago. And we did have 2 brands of insulin pump that are funded, but I think we've just gone back to one recently because Animas is.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah, so basically everyone's using the Libra, but we're self-funding it. And we recently took a petition to Parliament. So this is one of many that have gone previously, but this time it went to Parliament with a couple of other petitions for other medications. So there were almost 28,000 signatures.
Wow.
And that was in November, so we're in the little research phase now, and there'll be another presentation to the Health Committee in March. So fingers crossed. Maybe we'll get funding. And I was just telling you before, like, it was about 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, when I was in Paris on the day that they got funded. So I was thinking maybe New Zealand will, only be a couple of years behind. We're almost there. But yeah, it's been about 4 years and we haven't had any changes. So
that's crazy. And I think we talked about this before as well, but you guys don't have any other CGMs available,
no,
even for self-funding, is that right?
We can get them through kind of this middleman company where we all get our Libras from.
Yeah.
But they're not funded.
Everything's self-funded. Yeah.
And I think expensive. Wow.
Yeah, for sure. And I think in Australia we've still got a long way to go as well to get subsidy for every person who needs it and who will benefit from it as well. Because at the moment those categories are quite narrow. But you're right, it's taken so many years and so much work in advocacy, in sharing stories, in persuading government that, this actually has a lot of long-term benefits and can help a lot of people with diabetes in Australia. Like, it just doesn't, make sense why they wouldn't subsidize it for everyone. So I know a lot of organizations are working really hard behind the scenes to get that going. And it sounds like you guys are doing an amazing job sort of driving that along as well. So fingers crossed again.
Yeah.
Did I cut you off? Were you going to say something?
I was just saying that you guys had a bit of a baby step achievement with the Libra.
Yeah. Yeah, so recently our Libre sensors just got included in the CGM subsidy for children under 21, or like people under 21 years of age, women who are planning pregnancy, pregnant, or have just given birth. And I think people with a healthcare, like a concession card or like a pension card or something like that, and it's only for people with type 1. I mean, we still have a lot of work to do all round. Like currently, people with type 2 diabetes are only given subsidy for test strips for 6 months. And then after that, they have to go back to their doctors to get a signature to get that extended. But some doctors don't believe in it. So they're just like, no, we're not going to sign it off for you. People with pre-diabetes don't have access to any subsidy at all. So even though they're trying to make steps to better their health, they can't afford to do that. So, I mean, all around, there's always something to advocate for. So, yeah, we'll just keep chipping away and help each other out when we can.
And I was saying, like, you know, the money from my last book went to Nigeria and they have nothing. So every time I'm kind of advocating for New Zealand, like, oh, we don't have Libras, we don't have this, we don't have that, I still feel a little bit guilty.
Right. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, and it's weird because exactly, like some people are rationing test strips, rationing insulin. They don't have access to anything. I remember meeting someone who didn't know what insulin pens were because they only had syringes. And it was just such a mind-blowing thing that even though we're advocating for all this amazing technology, it's important not to forget the people who have nothing and to continue fighting for them as well. So yeah, you're doing an amazing job balancing all of that.
Hopefully.
So the question is, do you have plans for a third book?
Yes. That's about
It's like, we'll get the second one out of the way first.
Everyone that wrote anecdotes to me over the last few years, they're still going to be used in the book. It's just still coming. I started writing an adult's book, and it was more like advice and fun stories and all the horrific things that have happened, like in travel and relationships. And people sent me some amazing stuff.
Yeah.
I just haven't sat down to finish it, but I will. I'll put it on my list for this year.
Awesome. Well, I guess remember, like, this is your side gig, so you have 1,001 things happening. So, but we are excited to hear about that too. So that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So we had one other thing to really discuss today, and we'll, then we'll wrap up kind of thing. But it was interesting because when we were talking about what we were going to actually discuss on the Minisode, was like, hey, we haven't really heard a lot about diabetes and epilepsy. And then as soon as we started talking about it, we saw this post come up that said people with type 1 diabetes were 3 times more likely to have epilepsy. And it kind of just blew both our minds away because you didn't know this, I didn't know this. So I thought maybe let's spend a bit of time talking about diabetes and epilepsy. So tell us about your diagnosis and sort of, you living with epilepsy and how that maybe impacts diabetes.
Yeah. So, I had no idea until right before me and you were discussing doing this interview. This post comes up from Diabetes UK about the relationship between diabetes and epilepsy with type 1s. I had never heard anything about it. And it said people with type 1 were 3 times more likely to get epilepsy. But so it said they know there's a connection, but no one's actually done any research into it. So they don't know why there's a connection. So it will be helpful to know why, and hopefully they do some more research on it.
Yeah. So research is out there. Here's a topic for you. Go nuts.
With that. I mean, when I got diagnosed with epilepsy, the type 1 was just a side thing. And it actually took a long time to be diagnosed because, as you know, with type 1, doctors can associate any symptoms you have with being type 1. Like, oh, it's just a hypo. Oh, it's just this. So it took me like 2 months to get diagnosed. I think I would have had to have a seizure in front of them in the office. So I just had a seizure and went to hospital, and they were finally like, oh yeah, you have epilepsy, and sent me home on the bus.
But they weren't like, oh, you had a seizure, it was just diabetes related. And I guess back in those days, I'm not sure how long ago it was, but I'm assuming
years ago.
But they didn't have technology like Libre or Dexcom and things like that.
Yeah, I know. But so they told me it was an epileptic seizure, not a diabetes one.
Okay.
But when I came back to New Zealand, that's when they actually got moving. But the annoying thing about it is that the symptoms of having a diabetes seizure or an epileptic seizure are the same. So everyone with epilepsy has like it's called an aura. So when you feel like you're going to have a seizure, you get certain triggers. And mine just happened to be the same as when I'm feeling hypo.
Gosh. And does everyone have different auras?
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
I know. So, but luckily we have all this technology now, so I
Yeah.
can just like look at my watch, read my blood sugar, and I know it's not a diabetes one. But like I was saying to you at work, we have these first aiders, and I have to go and explain that if I have a seizure,
Yeah.
they need to like use my scanner,
Mhm.
my arm, and if it's under a certain number, then it's a diabetes one. If it's not, it's an epilepsy one. Get
Yeah.
my glucagon pen. Yeah, so it's more other people that it's
Yeah. And then so because when you have a diabetes seizure, you're like, get the glucagon out, go nuts. But then if it's an epilepsy one, what do you do? And I think when you told me this, I was quite mortified.
Oh, it's just like you just leave the person on the floor, like make sure they're not hitting their head or anything. And you just kind of have to wait till it finishes, unless it goes on for a long time, in which case you would call an ambulance. But I mean, I could be having an epilepsy one and someone could stab me with a glucagon pen.
God,
which wouldn't really matter, but if it was the other way around,
horrible.
it would be bad.
Gosh, okay. But either way, though, like that would be horrible. And how do you feel after having an epilepsy seizure? Like, is it similar to coming out from like a diabetes seizure where you just feel absolutely spent, particularly if you've got glucagon, whacked into you? You usually feel pretty crappy afterwards.
Yeah, so I've never had a diabetic seizure, but I have had the glucagon pen. But after an epilepsy one, I sleep for like 12 hours.
Wow.
It's bad. Have you had a diabetic one? I don't know.
I've never had a seizure before, so I don't know. But I know after a really bad hypo, I'm exhausted. I'm wiped out. So it's kind of similar to that.
Yeah,
Do you get
exactly.
like a brain fog as well? You're just like, you can't really because it does impact like, your thinking, your critical thinking. So
Yeah.
I've been told after you've had a severe hypo, don't make any serious decisions for a while.
Yeah, it's actually really embarrassing after an epilepsy one. I don't know if it's just for me or other people as well, but there's like this 20-minute gap after having a seizure and coming round. And then, yeah, there's like 20 minutes where I look like I'm acting normal and answering questions. Like I've talked to ambulance people, told them about my drugs.
Yeah.
Then I come around like 20 minutes
Oh,
later, I come back to being myself, and I'm like, where am I?
that's so.
I've just been talking to you. So
So you kind of like zone out and you go into like autopilot, and then
I don't remember anything.
wow, but then you're still answering questions coherently.
People just think I'm like back to normal. Things
That's
fine.
that's
So
So if we see someone who has epilepsy and who's having a seizure, we leave them be, we time it, we see how long it goes for. When do we call the ambulance?
I think if it's getting towards 5 minutes is like the cutoff.
Okay.
But then obviously, if people are like foaming at the mouth or something, you have to put them on their side and.
Right. Okay. So recovery position.
Yeah.
Okay. This is good. We're getting some like, first aid.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Well, I can't believe, that there's an actual link between type 1 and epilepsy. So I guess we'll keep watching the space to see what happens.
Yeah. Hopefully someone just puts some money into it and does some research. I don't know.
Yeah. What would be the ideal research topic for, in terms of what do you want to find out the most? If there's like all this money that goes into one project, well, apart from a cure, what would it be? Like diabetes, epilepsy.
I would like a cure. That would be, pretty amazing.
Very big picture. And everyone says, if there's anything in the world you could do, what would it be? And everyone always says a cure. But we know people are working on cures. So if the cure aside, any topic around research, to give the researchers a bit of an idea what to research in, what are some of your things on the list that you want done?
Well, definitely the epilepsy diabetes, because like I only know one other person with epilepsy and diabetes, and yet apparently you're meant to have this 3-time ratio of getting it. So, yeah, it would be great to figure out why the link was there.
Yeah, for sure. Interesting.
Yeah. Other than that, I mean, it is cliche, but I just want a cure. A new pancreas, like some injecting the islet cells that they're doing at the moment,
Yeah.
stem cells. I'm pretty sure the lady in Australia got a pancreas transplant. I'm sure she was from Australia. Someone on the news had a pancreas transplant.
Yeah, so we've had a few people in the show who've had pancreas and pancreas kidney transplants before. And I think the way you sort of get onto that list is they generally do a pancreas kidney transplant together, and they kind of assess everyone depending on their circumstances and stuff. But I guess a transplant's great because you don't, the diabetes kind of puts on a back burner, but then you have to consider the immunosuppressants every day, the tablets, and all of that other stuff as well. So it's kind of like which one, and I think the doctors weigh up the benefits and the risks and all of that stuff as well. So
I think I'm gunning for Denise Fosterman at the moment with that BCG vaccine.
Yeah.
That's the one I'm crossing my fingers for.
I think we'll be hearing a lot more around sort of the stem cell and like CRISPR and things like that coming out. So we'll see. I don't know. It's not my area of like expertise, so I can't tell you. But I've heard a lot of stuff around, different genetic technologies and things that they're doing. So fingers crossed.
I know all these mice get cured.
Right?
Mountain. I feel sorry for them, but come on.
Well, I guess let's wrap it up now. Thank you so much. Thanks for your patience when we kind of dropped out a little bit. I was a freak out of text going, actually, what's going on? Like, you're frozen. You're completely frozen. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm frozen too. So thanks for your patience. Thank you very much for taking time out on your Sunday morning to come and chat with us, because it's been so good. We've learnt about all your books that you're writing, not the causes, but like the important after effects of that in terms of where the donations are going. We've talked about diabetes advocacy in terms of access to technology, and also a very interesting topic around diabetes and epilepsy, and we learnt a little bit about what to do. So thank you for sharing that so openly. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so everyone else, if you have any other questions, feel free to pop it in the comments. We'll get back to you, and Carrie will answer questions as well. Happy to answer questions. We'll get updates on her book when they're ready. We will share them across Beta Change so you can jump on it as well, and let you know of any third books that might be coming out.
Yeah.
In the meantime, feel free to like us on Facebook. We have a YouTube channel you can subscribe to, and we're on Twitter as well. So until next time, please thank Carrie. Please thank Carrie this way. And we'll catch you next episode. Bye.